What is going on, football fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with a Thursday night football preview for Draftkings Showdown between the Ravens and the Buccaneers. Going to break down some of the top plays here for Thursday, a few stacks to consider, roles that you might want to set in your optimizer, just everything that you need to know before building all of your lineups and hopefully taking down a GPP on Thursday. So a lot to get into. Let's go ahead and get this thing rocking. We've got our projections up, and before we hop into the player-by-player analysis, let's touch on first off some injuries and then a game script and perhaps a few of the types of scripts that might end up playing out. So first off, game total, 45.5 points, a 1-point spread favoring the Ravens. So you're dealing with a competitive game, which is a nice little change from what we've had of late. We've had a lot of low total, non-competitive, low offensive efficiency sort of games that from a fan perspective has kind of been disappointing, right? So here, the Ravens, Buccaneers seems to be a little bit more of a high-powered matchup, and definitely that is reflected with the Vegas odds. Close spread, relatively respectable total there at 45.5 points. But the reason why the total is not closer to 50 is the injury concerns that both teams have. Mike Evans has missed practice, has been limited all week, so he's legitimately questionable. Mark Andrews has not practiced over the first 2 days either. Still waiting on an injury report from Wednesday, but he's also going to be at least questionable up until Thursday. Gus Edwards limited, Rashad Bateman has not practiced, and Julio Jones is probably closer to doubtful than he is questionable, is also a huge question mark on the slate. So with all of those concerns in mind, we might have a ton of value opening in on the slate. We might have a few players that have rolled in late that are maybe a little bit lower owned than they should be as a result. Just a lot of moving parts going on with this Thursday night football slate. So as of right now, these projections reflect that everyone is going to play. That includes Julio Jones down here at $5,400. But as per usual, these are going to change drastically throughout the week. The ownership numbers are going to reflect some of the injury news, even projections, right? Somebody like a Mark Andrews goes out, a lot of that target share has to go somewhere, right? Like a Duvernay, a Bateman, if he ends up suiting up for the slate, Isaiah Oliver, those sort of tight ends at the bottom of the board, likely are going to have to get a few more looks from us. So just know that on the Patreon is where that's all going to be updated. So if you're on there, you have access to it. You'll be able to see how it changes throughout the week, but just keep that in mind if you're watching this maybe on a Wednesday evening or even on a Thursday. Quite a bit may have changed since then. But with that in mind, a few game scripts to consider. Anytime we have that close spread, a lot of the public is going to play a 3-3 sort of lineup. They're going to expect the game to be ultra competitive. And most of the time, we have a 1 or a 3-point spread or less. I'm going to take onslaughts of either team, assuming that maybe the Ravens control it. Let's say that the Buccaneers go out there and handedly beat the Ravens. Those sort of game scripts are going to be underutilized when you compare their actual hit rate. So a 4-2 Ravens, a 5-1 Ravens, or on the flip side, a 4-2 Buccaneers or a 5-1 Buccaneers are all going to be slightly underutilized, but you're still going to have to pick your favorite, right? Playing 4 different game scripts is going to be tough to do, but perhaps you really like the Ravens in this matchup, then go with that side, right? Take some 4-2, 5-1 Ravens stacks, or on the flip side, if you're on the Buccaneers side, you can go in that direction. Personally, I don't know which way that I'm going. A lot of it's going to come down to the injury situations. With players that are rolled out, I'm probably more likely to stack the team that has less players out. And then on top of that, let's say a Mark Andrews is out or a Mike Evans, for example, you're going to get a really nice piece of value from perhaps the team that's going to lose. But let's see, right? Let's say if it's a tight end over here for the Ravens, likely $1,600. You can even play Josh Oliver here. It's, $200 at the minimum, and then spend up for some of the premium options from the Buccaneers and that sort of Buccaneer stack. So a lot of it's going to change here, but nothing has really been decided on my end. I definitely know a few players that I'm going to get to though. So let's hop through some of the individual players that I want to highlight. So starting at the top, Lamar Jackson is going to be owned in every single lineup that I have. I can just tell you that right now. The guy is a showdown monster. More often than not is the optimal captain that you need. So he's also going to be my highest owned captain. So even in, let's say, 4-2 or 5-1 Buccaneer stacks, I'm going to have lineups where Lamar Jackson is still the captain, even when I'm only running with 1 or 2 Ravens players. That's how much upside he brings to the table, both through the air and on the ground. And time and time again, you've seen him break slates. So I don't want to even spend too much time there. We already know what kind of talent that he is. He's going to get the ownership, though. You can see I have right around 77% combined ownership between the flex and the captain spot there. So definitely up there in terms of your exposure. In terms of Mike Evans, if he plays, I like him. Tom Brady, I don't love at captain, but I will be mixing in with some of my Buccaneers lineups. I do like Mike Evans at captain if he plays, though. I think that some of the injury concerns might keep people off of him in the captain slot, and he still brings all of that touchdown upside to the table. If anything, if he has that lingering injury, maybe they're just keeping him out of practice to make sure that he's fresh for Thursday. I also think that that's a possibility. Mark Andrews, love him at captain and the flex if he plays. Similar thing as a Mike Evans. He might be a little bit underowned because of some of the injury concerns. Mike, Chris Godwin's going to get a lot of attention. I think it's deservingly so, though. Believe it or not, he might be the most healthy wide receiver there on the Buccaneers side. Lenny Fournette, you got to love. I don't love him at the captain slot because I do think that the Ravens, if I'm going to choose a team to stack, I guess I got to get this out there. I think it's going to be the Ravens, right? They're 1-point favorites based on the fact that the Steelers were able to beat the Buccaneers. Obviously I'm biased here as a Steeler fan. I don't think it says all that much about the Buccaneers as a team. I think the Ravens are the better squad here. So if that's going to be the narrative that I play, I'm not going to be as likely to play a Leonard Fournette at the captain slot as if I was going with a bunch of Buccaneers on-slot lineup. So just keep that in mind. That's why I don't have him at the captain slot as of right now. But let's say Mark Andrews is rolled out. A few of these other guys like a Bateman or an Edwards are rolled out. That may very much change where I'm starting to like the Buccaneers a little bit more in stacking that side. So keep in mind that this is fluid, but I understand the argument to getting him at captain. Gus Edwards has been limited. If he doesn't play, somebody like Kenyon Drake is going to have an even bigger role on the team. And then Justice Hill, too, is going to be your goal line back. So if this is a huge injury to keep an eye on because Justice Hill would become an amazing piece of value there in the red zone. And then Kenyon Drake would become a borderline must play at $4,600. If Gus Edwards plays, I'll have him in my lineups. I think that he's a solid option at $7,600. Not enough for the captain, though. Bateman's got the injury to keep an eye on. Devin Duvernay will be playing, though, pretty much no matter what. So I know that he'll be in my player pool. Julio Jones might be out, so I'm kind of assuming he's going to be out. So he's still projecting for points, for target share, also for some ownership at this point, but I don't have him in my pool. I don't think he'll play. Kadon's a little bit too expensive for my liking. So $5,000. I mean, he's got to get you a touchdown, 5 catches, maybe 50 yards to get to the optimal. I don't know if I see him doing so. Rachaad White, on the other hand, if the Buccaneers are playing from behind, becomes an even more attractive play. So I love him as a buyback for some of my Ravens heavy stacks, as he is the more receiving back for the Buccaneers team. So he's going to get a lot of PPR usage if they are playing from behind, particularly if it's a multiple touchdown deficit. I like Kenyon Drake. He's the one healthy back for the Ravens. So even if Gus Edwards plays, I love Kenyon Drake. It's just that if Gus Edwards is out, that Kenyon Drake becomes an even bigger priority for me. I like Justin Tucker. He's the best kicker of all time. Enough said there. Buccaneers defense, I still like against Lamar Jackson. He tends to make a few mistakes. He gets sacked quite a bit because of his rushing upside, and he's a little bit turnover prone, both on the fumble and the interception standpoint. So I could see them getting a splash play. Scotty Miller, because Russell Gage is out, gets a little bit more attention. Of course, Deshaun Jackson. Now, this is an X factor, right? If any of those wide receivers like a Bateman are out, or especially if a Mark Andrews goes down, watch out for Deshaun Jackson. And even if all of them play, watch out for Deshaun Jackson, because it's only going to take one play for him to get to his ceiling, like one deep ball, and he's definitely got it in him. I know he's getting up there in age. He's probably a little bit washed, not quite as fast as he was before, not quite as quick. I got a sneaking suspicion about him there at $2,000. So I like him if he plays. If some of those other guys end up getting rolled out, even more so. Likely, gotta love a cheap tight end, especially if Mark Andrews is out. Kyle Rudolph, because Cameron Brate will not be playing, could be worth a few looks there at $1,000. And lastly, Josh Oliver, I have him down as a yes, kind of even in anticipation of maybe Mark Andrews being out. He's the minimum price, and if that were to be the case, he would be the number 2 tight end on a team that loves using 2 tight end sets. So definitely something that I think is worth a few looks in a large field GPP. All right, fellows, that is all I've got for the Thursday night football preview. As per usual, if you're looking for access to all of my projections directly as they change for all of the injury news, make sure to check out my Patreon. There is a link in the description of the video to that. It is $10 a month for all of my NFL projections, whether it's for Thursday night football, Monday night football, or the main slate every single week. I have you covered for everything you need to know for Draftkings and a few prize picks props that I'm dropping for football and all of my golf content, which I'm sure you've seen on the channel before. But anyways, until next time, best of luck with all of those lineups, any bets that you decide to place here for Thursday night's game, and let's get this cash, fellas.